The station called Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was massive, built from metals that humans could not name, and it served as the home of the Galactic Assembly. 42 species lived and worked here. They made laws. They settled disputes. They decided who mattered and who did not. Humans, it was agreed, did not matter very much. Stood by the observation window and watched the ships come and go. He was a diplomat, one of 12 humans allowed to represent Earth in the Assembly. He had held this position for 9 years. In that time, he had learned many things. He had learned that the galaxy was old. He had learned that humans were young. And he had learned that the old did not respect the young. Behind him, the door opened. He did not turn around. "You are watching the ships again," said a voice like dry leaves scraping stone. Smiled, though the smile did not reach his eyes. "Envoy, I was wondering when you would visit." The creature that entered was tall and thin, with a body like a stick insect and eyes like polished black stones. Was one of the oldest species in the Assembly. His people had traveled the stars when humans still lived in caves. He had been assigned to watch the human delegation, to study them, to make sure they caused no trouble. "I have read your proposal," said. He moved to stand beside, his long limbs folding in ways that looked painful. "You wish the Assembly to send peacekeepers to your border colonies." "The Dominion has been raiding our settlements for 6 months," said. His voice was calm. It was always calm. 12 attacks, 400 dead. We have asked them to stop. They laugh at us." "They are warriors," said. "It is their nature. Surely you understand this." "I understand that our people are dying." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Your kind has been part of the Assembly for 80 years. In that time you have never once started a war. You negotiate, you compromise, you bend." He turned one of his black eyes toward. "This is why other species do not fear you. This is why they feel free to take what they want." Said nothing. "My advice," continued, "is to accept your losses. Abandon the border colonies. Move your people somewhere safer. They will grow bored eventually. They always do." "And the dead?" asked quietly. "What about them?" "The dead are dead. Mourning them will not bring them back." Placed one of his thin hands on shoulder. The gesture was meant to be kind, but it felt like being touched by a skeleton. "Your species is emotional. I understand this. But emotion is weakness in the galaxy. The sooner you learn this lesson, the easier your existence will be." Finally turned to look at him. His face was perfectly still. "Thank you for your wisdom, Envoy." Studied him for a moment. Then he nodded and left the room. Stood alone by the window. His hands, hidden in the sleeves of his formal robe, were shaking. Found him an hour later in the small garden that humans had built on their section of the station. It was not much, some grass, a few trees, a small pond with fish from Earth, but it was theirs. She was sent to Prime to study alien life. She was Also's closest friend. They had known each other since childhood, had grown up in the same district of Seoul, had dreamed together of seeing the stars. Now they were here, and the stars were not as beautiful as they had imagined. "The Assembly rejected our request," said without looking up. He was sitting on a bench, staring at the pond. Sat beside him. "I heard they called it a minor territorial dispute." 400 people said, men, women, children, minor. "They don't understand," said softly. "They've never understood us." "No," agreed. "They think we are weak because we choose peace. They think we are foolish because we value life. They look at us and see prey." Was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "What will we do?" Before could answer, his communication device buzzed. He looked at it. His face went pale. "What is it?" asked. Stood up slowly. His movements were stiff like a man in a dream. "New colony, they've gone dark." "Dark, what does that mean?" "No communications, no signals, nothing." He looked at her, and for the first time in years she saw fear in his eyes. 12,000 people, silence. The news spread quickly through the human section of Prime. People gathered in hallways, speaking in hushed voices. Some cried. Others stood in shock. New was not just any colony. It was one of the oldest, founded by the first wave of human settlers. Many people had family there, friends, loved ones. Spent the night trying to contact anyone, the colony administration, the emergency services, even private citizens. Nothing. The entire planet had gone quiet, like someone had turned off a light. In the morning, came to see him again. "I have heard about your colony," they said. "I am sorry for your loss." Looked at him with red eyes. He had not slept. "We don't know what happened yet. There may be survivors." "Perhaps," said, though his tone suggested he did not believe it. "They have been active in that area. It is possible they attacked." "If they did," said slowly, "what will the assembly do?" Was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "The same thing they have always done. Nothing. They are too powerful, too useful. The assembly will express regret and move on. This is the way of things." Nodded. He had expected this answer. "I know this is difficult," said, "but you must be realistic. Humans are not warriors. You cannot fight you cannot win. The best thing you can do is mourn your dead and protect your remaining colonies. Pull back. Survive." "And if we don't want to pull back?" asked. Tilted his head. "Then you will lose more colonies, more people. Is that what you want?" "What I want," said, "is for no one else to die." "Then do as I say, bend, accept, endure," moved toward the door. "I have seen many young species come and go, human. The ones who survive are the ones who know their place. The ones who fight above their strength are remembered only as lessons." He left. Sat alone in his office. The communication device in his hand was still silent. 12,000 voices gone. He thought about what it said: bend, accept, endure. He thought about the children who had been born there, the schools, the hospitals, the farms, all of it silent. And something inside him, something that had been quiet for a very long time, began to wake up. Came to check on him later that day. She found him standing by the window again, looking at the stars. She said, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, quieter, colder. "Told me that humans bend," he said, "that it's our nature." "He's wrong," said. "No," replied, "he's not wrong. We do bend. We bend and bend and bend." He turned to look at her. His eyes were dry now. The fear was gone. In its place was something she had never seen before. "But even we have a breaking point. And when we break, we don't shatter." "What do we do?" asked. Looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12,000 people were waiting to be remembered. "We sharpen," he said. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence from New. 3 days of waiting, hopping, praying. And then the transmissions began. They came in broken pieces, scattered across emergency frequencies. A voice, weak and afraid, calling out into the darkness. The technical teams on Prime worked through the night to clean up the signal, to make sense of the fragments. When they finally played the complete recording, no one spoke for a very long time. The voice belonged to a man named Minu. He was an engineer, 32 years old. He had worked in the colony's water treatment facility. He was hiding in a storage room, recording with a damaged device, and he was the only one left. "They came at dawn," his voice said through the speakers. "The hundreds of ships, we had no warning. Our defense systems didn't even activate. It was like they knew exactly where everything was." Stood in the communications room with a dozen other humans. They listened in silence. "The first wave destroyed our communication towers," Minu continued. "Then they landed, soldiers, thousands of them. They went through the city street by street. They weren't looking for resources. They weren't taking prisoners. They were just killing everyone, everything." His voice broke. In the background there were sounds, screaming, explosions, something that might have been laughter. "The children," Minu whispered. "They killed the children. I saw them drag families from their homes. I saw them." He stopped. The sound of his breathing filled the room. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't describe it, I don't have the words. Had tears running down her face. She was not the only one. I found this room by accident, Minu said. I've been here for 2 days. I can hear them outside sometimes. Searching, celebrating, they're laughing. They think this is funny. They think we're a joke. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. If anyone is listening to this, tell Earth. Tell the Assembly. Tell everyone. They didn't do this because they needed something from us. They did it because they could. Because no one would stop them. Because we're human and humans don't matter. Another pause. 12,000 people lived here. I knew most of them, family next door. Old grandmother who sold fish cakes at the market. The teacher who taught my nephew to read. All gone, all of them, because we don't matter. The transmission ended with static. The room was silent. His face was like stone. He turned and walked out without saying a word. On Earth, Admiral sat alone in his office. The recording played on his screen for the third time. He had not moved. He had not spoken. He simply watched and listened, his old face showing nothing. He was 63 years old. He had served in Earth's defensive fleet for 40 years. He had never fought a real war. Humans didn't fight wars anymore. They negotiated. They compromised. They bent. When the recording ended, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he stood, walked to his window, and looked out at the city below. Seoul had changed so much since his childhood. Taller buildings, cleaner air, happy people walking through safe streets, peace. They had achieved peace. And now this. His door opened. A young woman entered and saluted. Her name was Jinnah, and she was one of his best tactical officers. She was 28 years old, brilliant and loyal to a fault. Admiral, she said, the Council is asking for your response. My response, he repeated quietly. Yes, sir, they want to know what you recommend. Turned to look at her. What do you recommend, Captain? Jinnah hesitated. Sir, they have superior numbers. Their fleet is 3 times the size of ours. Our ships are designed for defense, not attack. If we try to fight them directly, we'll lose. That's the tactical assessment, said. I asked what you recommend. Jinnah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I recommend we kill every last one of them. Nodded slowly. That's what I thought. He walked to his desk and pressed a button. A holographic display appeared, showing a map of human space. There were hundreds of colonies, stations, outposts, and beyond them, in the dark regions that humans had declared forbidden, there were other things. Things that had been built in secret. Things that had been hidden away and forgotten. Captain said, what do you know about the sleeping fleet? Jinnah frowned. Just rumors, sir. Ships that were built during the collapse wars. They say they were too powerful, too dangerous. The Council ordered them decommissioned. Decommissioned, repeated. That's what the official records say. He pressed another button and the map changed. Hidden shipyards appeared, scattered across remote systems, dozens of them. The Council was afraid. They thought if we kept those ships, we would become what we were trying to escape, violent, dangerous. So they ordered them sealed away, but they couldn't bring themselves to destroy them. Jinnah stared at the display. How many ships? 200. The most advanced warships humanity ever built, designed for one purpose only. Looked at her with tired eyes. Total war. And you know how to activate them. I'm one of 3 people who do. He pressed another button. Across human space, in those hidden shipyards, lights began to turn on for the first time in a century. They think we're weak because we choose peace. They think we don't know how to fight. He shook his head slowly. They have no idea what they've woken up. On Prime heard the news from his intelligence network. The humans were mobilizing. Ships were moving. Old facilities were coming back online. He requested a meeting with, but the human diplomat was unavailable, so he went to find instead. She was in the garden sitting by the pond. She was not crying anymore. Her face was calm, too calm. The Assembly has decided to issue a statement, said, approaching her carefully. They will condemn this actions and call for dialogue. Dialogue repeated. Her voice was flat. Yes, it is the civilized approach. Violence only creates more violence. Surely you understand this. Looked at him. Her eyes were empty, like windows into a house where no one lived anymore. We do understand, she said. We've spent 80 years understanding. We've bent and accepted and endured just like you told us to. We've watched our people die and done nothing because that's what civilized species do. Felt something strange, an uncomfortable sensation that he had not experienced in many years. It took him a moment to identify it. It was fear. The assembly will help you, he said. In time, but you must be patient. Patient stood up slowly. Do you know what told me before he left? Left? Where has he gone? He's joining the fleet. He said he couldn't ask others to do what he wasn't willing to do himself. She walked past, toward the exit. He also asked me to give you a message. Turned to follow her with his eyes. What message? Stopped at the door. She didn't look back. He said your gods should help because ours have looked away. She left, stood alone in the garden surrounded by earth trees and earth flowers and a small pond with earth fish. Everything was peaceful. Everything was quiet. But for the first time in his long life, he felt the weight of that quiet. It was not peace. It was the calm before something terrible. In the hidden shipyards, the sleeping fleet began to wake. 200 ships, black as night, with no markings, no flags, no names. They had been built by humans who remembered what war meant. Humans who had survived the worst their species could do to itself and had sworn never to let it happen again. But they had also known that someday someone might force their hand. Someday the galaxy might push them too far. And when that day came, humanity would need something that could push back. The ships powered up one by one. Their engines hummed with energy that had been stored for 100 years. Their weapons systems came online, tested, ready. Their crews arrived, volunteers, all of them. Men and women who had seen the recording from New, who had heard the screaming, who had heard the laughter. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. They all knew why they were there. Admiral stood on the bridge of the flagship, a vessel called the. Captain Jinnah stood beside him. Through they could see the other ships forming up, a fleet of shadows ready to move. Sir, Jinnah said quietly, the Council has authorized the mission, but they want to know your objective. Was silent for a long moment. He thought about New, about 12,000 people who would never come home, about children who would never grow up, about the laughter of soldiers. Objective, he said finally. Make them remember, make them all remember. Humans don't bend forever, and when we break the ones who broke us. Jinnah nodded, yes, sir. The sleeping fleet moved into formation. 200 ships, running silent, broadcasting nothing. They slipped into the darkness between stars and disappeared. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. 2 weeks passed. The galaxy watched and waited. Something was happening in human space, but no one knew exactly what. The assembly received reports, strange movements, ships appearing and disappearing, communications going dark. The humans had always been open, easy to read, easy to predict. Now they were quiet. Now they were shadows. On Prime, the human section had changed. The delegates still attended meetings. They still spoke politely. They still followed the rules. But something was different. The smiles were gone. The jokes were gone. The warmth that had always defined human interaction had disappeared. Observed them with growing concern. He had studied humans for 60 years. He knew their patterns. He knew their tells, and what he was seeing now did not match anything in his experience. He approached a human aide one morning, a young man who had always been friendly, always ready to chat. "How are you today?" asked. The man looked at him. His face was blank. "I'm fine," he said and walked away. That was all, no small talk, no questions about his day, just 2 words in silence. Assembly psychologists were brought in to analyze the situation. They monitored human emotional signatures, studied their behavior patterns, reviewed their communications. The report they produced was disturbing. Their emotional output has flattened, the lead psychologist explained to the Assembly Council. We expected anger, grief, fear. Instead, we're seeing nothing. They've become emotionally neutral. What does that mean? A delegate asked. The psychologist hesitated. We don't know. This has never happened before. Human emotions are supposed to be overwhelming, chaotic. This is the opposite. It's like they've shut down everything except basic function. Perhaps they are in shock, another delegate suggested. Perhaps, the psychologist said, or perhaps this is something else entirely, something we don't have a category for. On Earth, things were moving quickly. The Defense Council met every day, sometimes multiple times. Plans were drawn up, reviewed, discarded, redrawn. Resources were redirected. Factories that hadn't operated in decades were brought back online. An old woman named was called out of retirement. She was 81 years old, a historian who had spent her life studying human conflict. She had written the definitive texts on the collapse wars, the terrible period when humanity had almost destroyed itself. She understood violence better than anyone alive. You want me to advise on tactics, she said when they explained why she was there. You want me to help you win a war. We want you to help us survive, the council chairman said. Looked around the room, at the faces of the men and women who would decide humanity's fate. They were scared, they were determined, they were lost. Let me tell you something about our species, she said. Every great power in history thought they could break us. The Mongols swept across Asia and left empires in ashes. They thought they were unstoppable. They weren't. The Nazis built death camps and murdered millions. They thought they would rule for 1,000 years. They didn't last 12. She stood up, leaning on her cane. The collapse wars were the worst. We turned our weapons on ourselves. Billions died. The planet burned. Everyone thought that was the end. It wasn't. We rebuilt. We healed. We swore to be better. And we have been. But now, the chairman said, we have to fight again. Yes, agreed. And that terrifies you because you've been taught that violence is wrong. That peace is the answer, that we evolved beyond our savage nature. She shook her head. We didn't evolve beyond it. We locked it away. We put chains on the monster inside us, and for 80 years those chains have held. And now they have given us a reason to break those chains, and when the monster comes out, it will be worse than anything they can imagine. She looked at each of them in turn, because the monster has been waiting, and it remembers everything. The volunteers came from everywhere, young people, old people, workers, teachers, farmers, artists. They lined up at recruitment centers across human space, waiting for their chance to serve. Not because they wanted to kill, not because they hated but because someone had to stand up. Someone had to say enough. A man named was among them. He was 35 years old, a former pacifist who had spent his life protesting military spending. He had believed that humans had moved past war. He had believed that reason and dialogue could solve any problem. He had been wrong. When the recording from New reached him, he had listened to it 3 times. He had heard Minu's voice. He had heard the screaming. He had heard the laughter, and something inside him had changed. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He simply walked to the nearest recruitment center and signed his name. The officer processing his application looked at his history. It says here you were a pacifist. You organized protests against the Defense Council. That's correct, Sid. Why are you here now? Thought about it, because I was wrong. I thought if we were peaceful enough, good enough, everyone would see that war was unnecessary. I thought the universe was fair. He shook his head. It isn't. They killed 12,000 people because they could, because no one stopped them, because we made ourselves easy to kill. And now I want to make sure they never think we're easy again. He was accepted. He was not alone. Millions joined him. Humans who had never held a weapon, who had never imagined hurting anyone. They didn't become angry, they became quiet. They became focused. They became something new. Received intelligence reports from the spy network. What he read made his ancient heart beat faster. The sleeping fleet was real. 200 warships, the most powerful humans had ever built, and they were moving toward space. But that wasn't what disturbed him most. What disturbed him was what those ships represented. They had been built during the darkest period of human history, built by people who had seen what their species could do when pushed too far, built as insurance against a day that most humans hoped would never come. The galaxy thought humans were pacifists. They were wrong. Humans had simply chosen not to fight, and there was a difference, a terrible difference. He went to find again. She was still on the station, still performing her duties but like the others, she had changed. The fleet will reach space in 3 days, said. The assembly is considering intervention. Didn't look up from her work. Intervention. Yes, to prevent unnecessary bloodshed, to negotiate a peaceful resolution. Peaceful? She said the word like it was a foreign language. The murdered 12,000 people, including children, and you want to negotiate with them. It is the civilized approach. Finally looked at him. Her eyes were empty, not angry, not sad, just empty. Do you know what humans do when we're afraid? She asked. Tilted his head. You hide, you run, you surrender. This is what our records show. Your records are wrong, turned back to her work. When humans are truly afraid, we stop being afraid. We turn off everything else, joy, sadness, mercy, doubt, and we focus on one thing only. Survival, not our own survival, the survival of what matters to us. And what matters to you now? Making sure this never happens again. Making sure no one ever looks at humanity and thinks we're easy prey. She picked up a data pad and began walking toward the door. They didn't just kill people, they laughed while they did it. They thought it was funny. What will you do? Stopped at the door. We'll make sure no one ever laughs at us again. The sleeping fleet emerged from silent space on the edge of territory. 200 ships, black as the void, running without lights, without transponders, without any signal at all. They appeared on sensors like ghosts. On the bridge of the admiral stood watching the stars, was beside him having left his diplomatic post to join the fleet. He was not a soldier. He had no military training, but he had asked to be here and had agreed. Why did you come? Asked him. Was quiet for a moment. Because I spent 9 years telling people that humans are peaceful, that we believe in dialogue, that we're different from the violent species. He shook his head. I meant it. I believed it. But when I heard that recording, when I heard Minu describe what they did to the children, I realized something. What? That I was lying. Not intentionally, but lying all the same. Humans aren't peaceful because we can't fight. We're peaceful because we choose not to. And choices can change. Nodded slowly. The galaxy thinks we're weak. Yes. They think we're prey. Yes. What do you want them to think? Looked at him. In the dim light of the bridge, his eyes reflected the distant stars. I want them to know that we choose peace, but I also want them to know what happens when we choose something else. Captain Jinna approached. Sir, we're detecting the Armada. 500 ships, they're moving to intercept. Didn't react. 500 against 200. They think they have the advantage. Do they? Smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. They have no idea what we are. The sleeping fleet moved forward. The Armada moved to meet them, and the galaxy held its breath. The gods, as had said, had looked away. What came next would be remembered for a very long time. The expanse was a region of empty space between stars. No planets, no stations, just darkness stretching forever in every direction. It was here that the two fleets met. 500 warships formed a massive wall of metal and fire. They were the pride of the Dominion, crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. Their commander, a veteran named, watched the human fleet approach with amusement. 200 ships, he said to his officers. They bring 200 ships against 500. Do they not understand mathematics? His officers laughed. They were large creatures, reptilian, with thick scales and sharp teeth. They had conquered dozens of species across the galaxy. Humans would be no different. "Open a channel," ordered. "Let us hear what these soft creatures have to say before we destroy them." The communication link opened. On the flagship's admiral appeared. He was sitting in his command chair, perfectly calm. "Human commander," said, "you have entered space. Surrender now and some of you may live. We might even be merciful." Didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached for a data pad beside his chair. He looked at it for a moment, then began to read. Age 42, engineer, survived by his wife and 2 sons. Frowned, "What is this?" Park, age 7, student, loved drawing pictures of flowers. "What are you doing?" Lee, age 68, retired teacher, had 11. Continued reading, name after name, age, occupation, a small detail about each person's life. The list went on and on. Some amusement faded. "Stop this. What is the point of this?" "These are the names of the people you killed on New," said without looking up. 12,000 of them. I intend to read every single one before we begin." "This is madness." "Yes," agreed, "it is." He kept reading. For 4 hours he read names. The fleet waited, confused, growing restless. Some commanders wanted to attack immediately, ordered them to wait. He was curious now. What kind of species did this? When finally finished, he set down the data pad and looked at the screen. His eyes were cold. "Those were the people you murdered," he said. "Men and women, children and elderly. You killed them not because you needed something from them, but because you thought it would be amusing. You laughed while they died." Snorted, "They were weak. The weak deserve to die. This is the way of the universe." "Perhaps," said, "but here is something you don't understand. We remember every name, every face, every life you took. We will remember them forever." He leaned forward slightly. "And now you are the dead. You just don't know it yet." He cut the communication. Stared at the blank screen. For just a moment he felt something strange, an unfamiliar sensation, but he pushed it aside. "Attack," he ordered. "Destroy them all." The battle began. The fleet surged forward, confident in their superior numbers. Their weapons fired, filling the void with fire and death. They expected the humans to retreat, to scatter, to die quickly. They were wrong. The human ships didn't retreat. They didn't scatter. They pushed forward, straight into the heart of the formation. And they didn't fight like any species that had ever faced. A human cruiser, badly damaged, its hull torn open, changed course directly toward a battleship. At the last moment, escape pods launched from its sides. Then the cruiser hit the ship at full speed. Both vessels exploded. "What are they doing?" an officer shouted. More human ships did the same thing. Damaged vessels turned into weapons, their crews ejecting at the last second, the ships themselves becoming missiles. The formation began to break apart as ships tried to avoid the human projectiles. On the Captain Jinnah led a squadron of fighters directly into the flagship's hangar bay. The defenders fired everything they had. Her ship was hit. It crashed into the hangar floor, breaking apart. Jinnah crawled from the wreckage. She was wounded. Blood ran down her face, but she was alive. Around her, soldiers raised their weapons. She should have been terrified. She wasn't. She pulled her sidearm and started walking toward them. The first soldier fired and missed. She didn't miss. He fell. The second soldier tried to retreat. She shot him too. The third, fourth, fifth, they fell one after another as she walked through them, firing with mechanical precision. She wasn't fighting to survive. She was fighting to reach the bridge. She was fighting because 12,000 people had died and someone had to answer for it. watched the battle from a monitoring station on Prime. Around him, assembly observers stared at the screens in silence. "They're not fighting to win," an analyst whispered. "They're fighting to make sure nothing survives." Said nothing. He watched as human ships threw themselves at the. He watched as crews ejected at the last moment, then watched their ships destroy enemy vessels. He watched as fighters dove into engine cores, pilots riding their craft into oblivion. They had superior numbers, they had more firepower, but they also had something to lose. They wanted to survive, they wanted to go home, they wanted to live. The humans didn't seem to care about living. "This is not a battle," said quietly. "This is an execution. They don't care how many of their own die. They only care about making sure they die more." An observer turned to him. "Is this what humans become when they break?" "No," said. "This is what humans become when they choose to stop being human. They remove everything: fear, doubt, mercy, self-preservation, and what remains is pure purpose, pure will." He watched another ship explode under human attack. "They call it madness. It isn't madness, it's clarity. Terrible, absolute clarity." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the armada was gone. 500 ships destroyed. Their crews dead. Their proud commander died on his bridge when Captain Jinnah finally reached it. She planted a small flag in the center of the command platform, a white flag bearing the names of the children who had died on Nu. Then she collapsed. The human fleet had paid a heavy price. 40% of their ships were gone. Thousands of humans had died, but not a single ship had retreated. Not a single crew had surrendered. They had fought until they won or until they couldn't fight anymore. Medical teams found Jinnah an hour later. She was barely alive. Her wounds were severe. She had lost a lot of blood, but she was smiling. The transmission of her standing on the bridge, planting that flag, went galaxy-wide. Every species in the assembly saw it. They saw a wounded human, surrounded by the bodies of her enemies, planting a memorial for dead children. And they understood. Humans were not weak. They had simply chosen to be peaceful. And when someone took that choice away, when someone pushed them past their breaking point, they became something else entirely. On Prime received a report from his intelligence network. That was in chaos. Their government was struggling to explain how their invincible armada had been destroyed. Citizens were demanding answers. And the human fleet was still moving. They hadn't stopped at the expanse. They were pushing deeper into space. Knew what that meant. This wasn't over. The humans weren't satisfied with one battle. They wanted something more. He thought about what it told him. "We'll make sure no one ever laughs at us again." He thought about what it said too. "Now you are the dead." And he thought about something an old human philosopher had once written, something he had read many years ago and dismissed as emotional nonsense. "Beware the patient man, for when his patience ends, so does everything else." He had thought it was exaggeration. Now he wasn't sure. The galaxy had awakened something in humanity, something that had been sleeping for a long time, and was beginning to realize that no one knew how to put it back to sleep. 1 month after the Battle of Expanse, the Dominion sent a desperate message to the Galactic Assembly. They were begging for help. Their armada was gone, their military was shattered, their government was falling apart, and the human fleet was sitting in orbit around there doing nothing, just watching, waiting. "What do they want?" the assembly chairman asked. The ambassador, a nervous creature with twitching scales, spread his hands helplessly. "We have asked them for terms. They haven't responded. They won't negotiate. They won't attack. They just stay there looking at us." "What are they doing?" "Broadcasting," the ambassador said. "They are broadcasting the recordings from the colony they claim we destroyed. Every hour on every frequency. Our entire planet can hear it. The screaming, the laughter, everything." The chamber was silent. "Our own citizens are turning against us," the ambassador continued. "They hear what our soldiers did. They see the names of the dead, children, elderly, families. He looked around desperately. There are riots in every city. Our government is being torn apart from within, and the humans just watch. A delegate from another species raised her hand. Why don't they simply attack? If they wanted revenge, they could destroy you in hours. I don't know, the ambassador admitted. Perhaps they want us to destroy ourselves. Perhaps they want our own people to punish us. He shook his head. Whatever their plan is, it's working. The Dominion is collapsing, and we cannot stop it. On the bridge of the Admiral watched the turn slowly beneath him. His fleet was still there, still waiting, still broadcasting. Stood beside him. Neither had slept much in the past month. There was too much to do, too much to remember. The Assembly wants us to accept a ceasefire, said. They're concerned about civilian casualties. Civilian casualties, repeated. He didn't smile. Did they mention that before or after the killed 12,000 of ours? After. Of course, turned to look at him. What do you think we should do? Was quiet for a moment. 6 months ago I would have said accept the ceasefire, end the violence, go home. He looked at the planet below. Now I don't know. If we stop, if we let them recover, what happens next time? What happens when some other species decides humans are easy targets? That's the question, isn't it? I don't want to be a killer, said slowly. I don't want humanity to be known for violence, but I also don't want to go back to being prey. I don't want to hear another recording like Minu's. Nodded. There's a middle ground. We don't have to destroy them. We just have to make sure they never forget. How? We're already doing it. The broadcasts, the waiting, the silence, gestured at the planet. Their own people are learning the truth. Their own people are demanding justice. We don't have to punish them. They're punishing themselves. A communication officer approached. Sir, the government has fallen. Military leaders are surrendering across the planet. They're requesting mercy. Closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were tired but clear. Tell them they'll get what they gave new, they'll get what they deserve. He paused. But we're not monsters. We won't touch civilians. We won't harm children. We're better than that. And the soldiers, the leaders who ordered the attack. Them said quietly, we don't forget. The Assembly called an emergency session. Every species sent representatives. The topic was simple, what to do about humanity. Some wanted sanctions. Humans had become violent, dangerous. They needed to be contained before they threatened anyone else. Others disagreed. Humans had only responded to an unprovoked attack that had started the conflict. Humanity had simply ended it. Listened to both sides. He had thought about this for weeks. He had reviewed everything he knew about humans, and he had come to a conclusion that terrified him. When his turn came to speak, he rose slowly. The chamber fell silent. I have studied humans for 60 years, he said. I have watched them join our assembly. I have observed their customs, their beliefs, their behavior. I thought I understood them. I was wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in. We believed humans were weak because they chose peace. We believed they were prey because they avoided violence. We believed that emotion made them inferior. He shook his head. We were fools, all of us. Then what are they? A delegate asked. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered, said. Not because of their weapons, not because of their numbers, because of what they become when pushed too far. He turned to face the full assembly. Most species fight with anger. Rage makes them strong but also makes them careless. Humans are different. When they break, they don't shatter. They don't become angry. They become cold. They remove everything, fear, mercy, self-doubt, even survival instinct, and they become pure purpose. They go mad, someone whispered. No, said firmly. Madness implies chaos. What humans do is the opposite. It is perfect clarity. They see what needs to be done and they do it without hesitation, without fear, without limit. He spread his hands. They had 500 ships, superior technology, better numbers. They lost everything. Not because humans were stronger, because humans didn't care if they died. They only cared about making sure they died more. The chamber was absolutely silent. "So what do we do?" the chairman asked finally. "How do we protect ourselves?" Looked at him. "You don't harm what they love. You don't threaten their families. You don't laugh while you kill their children." He took a breath. "Because when humans break, they break the ones who broke them, and they don't stop until it's done." "Are you saying we should fear them?" "I'm saying we should respect them," replied. "We should treat them as equals, we should listen when they speak, and we should never ever make them our enemies." He sat down slowly. "The thought humans were prey. Look what happened to them. Let that be a lesson to all of us." Captain Jinnah woke in a hospital bed on Earth. She had been in medical care for weeks, recovering from her wounds. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive. She didn't feel lucky, she felt empty. When she was strong enough to walk, she went to the window and looked out at the city. Souls spread out beneath her, peaceful and clean. People walked through the streets, living their lives. They had no idea what she had done, what she had seen. A nurse came to check on her. "Captain, you have a visitor." It was Admiral. He looked older than she remembered, more tired, but his eyes were still sharp. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I did things out there, things I never thought I could do." "I know. Do you regret sending me?" Was quiet for a moment. "Do you regret going?" Jinnah thought about the bridge, the flag she had planted, the names of the children written on white fabric. "No," she said finally. "Someone had to stand up for them. Someone had to show that their lives mattered." "Then no," said, "I don't regret it either." He placed a medal on her bedside table. "The council wants to make you an admiral. They say you're a hero." Jinnah looked at the medal. "I don't feel like a hero." "Heroes rarely do." Walk to the door. "Take your time healing. When you're ready, we'll talk about what comes next." "What does come next?" He paused. "We rebuild, we remember, and we make sure no one ever forgets that humans protect their own." He looked back at her. "The galaxy is watching us now. We have to show them who we really are." "And who is that?" Smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "People who choose peace, but not because we're weak, because we know what happens when we don't." He left. Jinnah sat alone with her medal and her memories. Outside, the sun was setting over Seoul. Children were playing in a park below. Families were going home for dinner. This was what they had fought for. This ordinary, beautiful life. This peace that others had tried to take away. She would make sure they never succeeded.